now at 6, a city on fire. Protests turning violent overnight. Demonstrators clashing with police. Businesses burned. We have live team coverage of the damage done and the effort this morning to pick up the pieces. The news at 6 starts right now. Good morning and thank you for being with us. Today is Sunday, May 31st. I'm Katie Kim. A violent night in the city, so let's get you the latest of what's happening right now. A curfew put in place by Mayor Lightfoot has just expired. The mayor says that curfew will go from 9 p.m. until 6 in the morning until further notice. The mayor says the curfew is necessary after protests over the death of George Floyd have turned violent. Demonstrators, some of them armed with weapons, clashed with police yesterday. CPD says several officers were injured. There is also major damage and looting at businesses all over the downtown area and the Magnificent Mile. We have live team coverage this morning, starting with NBC5's Sandra Torres. She is live at one of those businesses now boarding up. Good morning, Sandra.
Katie, we actually moved down just a little bit, but we're still in the River North area where there's absolute destruction. This is what we're seeing. It looks like a movie set out here. As you can see, multiple vehicles are abandoned throughout this area. This is on Kinsey and Wells. And what you're looking at is two vehicles that appear to have gotten into an accident, a car accident last night. They were abandoned. There's a traffic light that's here laying on the ground afterwards. And I was just talking to a woman who lives in the area, and she said it sounded like a war zone here last night during the midst of the violent protests. Right around 8, 9 p.m. is when she said she saw crowds of people walking through this area and destroying anything that was in their way. Now take a look at videos so you can see those images for yourselves. And this was the scene around midnight on Michigan Avenue, one of dozens of fires the Chicago Fire Department had to deal with all through the night. That's Chicago Sports and Novelty Store on Michigan Avenue, just south of Wmaq Drive, which was engulfed in flames, and it looks like it was looted before it was set on fire by vandals. You know, thousands of people took over the loop last night, and it got really, really tense at some points with people throwing projectiles at officers, including Molotov cocktails, according to Chicago police. And this is why Mayor Lightfoot went last night, had a news conference late around 8 p.m. last minute, imposing a curfew at 9 p.m. until 6 a.m. And as we know, that curfew is now lifted. Now take a look live here once again. This is an area that many of you may be familiar with here on Kinsey and LaSalle. Most Cantina, the Old Crow Smokehouse. These restaurants and bars are now destroyed as well, with windows shattered, glass all over the ground. And you can look inside. It looks clearly like people went in there to try to cause some damage as well. These are just some of the scenes that we're seeing, Katie, as we continue to travel through the downtown area, and it is just unbelievable.
It is just so heartbreaking to wonder how these businesses are going to be able to pick up, especially after they've been shut down for the last 2+ months over the coronavirus pandemic. Sandra, thank you so much. Police Superintendent David Brown joined the officers on the front lines. He wore a mask and a bulletproof vest. You can see him in the center of your screen there, assessing the situation with officers in helmets and full riot gear. And officers were on high alert throughout the city. Video captured by NBC5's Phil Rogers shows them guarding City Hall as the protests in downtown became more violent. And as that violence escalated, stores and businesses were smashed and looted. Our team coverage continues with NBC5's Chris Hush. He is live in the loop where people are just starting to clean up. Chris?
Right as the sun comes up, the damage is becoming more evident. Almost every other business here along State Street near this Macy's has been damaged or affected in some way. So take a look here. This, again, is the Macy's State Street. You can just see here the glass that's littering the floor, and we just a moment ago saw police officers enter the Macy's to see if anybody else was inside. There was a report that there were looters here this morning. Again, the sun is up. This has been going on since yesterday afternoon. You can see the cash register here was also busted, and all of the items on the shelves here ripped right off. I mean, I'm looking straight through the Macy's as we speak. And to top this off, I mean, if you take a look, Joe, if you can pan over here, you'll see that there are boards on the ground. These boards were up over the windows, so the looters took the boards off and then broke into the Macy's here along State Street. You'll also notice all of the graffiti, the tagging going on along State Street. This is a Red Line subway station. You have, people spray painting BLM. There's justice, no peace right there we see. And if we take a walk there, even more along State Street, more of the same. Another storefront of Macy's. The boards ripped down. There's a ladder there. This window was spared, it appears here. But if you go other windows here, I mean, you will find every other window shattered. We will say, as we speak this morning, we still see a police presence here, even though that curfew has now expired. We also know that there is supposed to be a community cleanup effort here. People from the community coming here on their own to help clean up. Katie, you said it best. A lot of these businesses were already closed for at least 2 months because of the pandemic that we're in. They were hoping to open up this week. Now they're dealing with all of this damage. We don't have any estimates on how much this cost. We also don't know right now any arrests or the number of arrests that were made last night. Of course, a lot of this damage also happened after that curfew was put in place at 9 o'clock. So there were people out here. If you're a downtown resident like I am, you heard the bangs, you heard the glass being shattered all through the night. You heard the fireworks and saw the fireworks. I could see it out of my apartment. It was absolute chaos and madness. We also know just a few blocks down to the north from where we are, the bridges are still up. That was done as a safety measure to try to contain the crowd, contain the protesters that were down here and the looters. But again, as we speak, these looters are still out here, even though there's a police presence. That community effort was supposed to start at 6 a.m. We haven't seen anybody come out here yet to clean up, but we do expect that to begin shortly. For now, I'm Chris Hush. We're along State Street here at the Macy's. We'll send it back to you, Katie.
And Chris, you described it so perfectly. You see the boards on the ground there, so it looks like stores did try to prepare in anticipation that some of these protests could turn violent, but unfortunately that didn't seem to help. Chris, thank you so much for that report. And our coverage of the protests nationwide will continue in just a moment, but first we want to get a check of the forecast with meteorologist Alicia Roman. Good morning, Alicia.
And good morning to you, Katie. Good morning, everybody. We have sunshine outside right now. Sunny skies to continue not only this morning, but throughout the rest of the day today. As we take a look at the numbers, right now we're at 51 degrees. That's 51 at O'Hare, 49 in Aurora, 50 in Kankakee. We'll zoom in. We're right around 50 degrees for you in New Lenox. Good morning. Gary's at 54. Over in Batavia, 48 degrees, 46 in Elgin. Wmaq right now is at 49 degrees. So a pretty cool start as we get things going on this Sunday morning. Here's a look at the weather headlines for today. Sunny and pleasant conditions once again this afternoon. More sunshine today. Yesterday we had more clouds in the morning, but ended off with sunshine. I do think sunshine all day long. Cooler temperatures still along the lakefront. Some areas will only see highs today in the upper 50s, low 60s along the lake, but in the 70s inland. We have more humidity and heat, Katie, on the way. We'll talk about that in the 10-day in a few moments.
Alicia, thank you. And we do want to tell you that there were also several shootings in the area where these protests were taking place. We know this morning 2 people are recovering and another person is in critical condition. That first shooting reportedly happened around 9:30 last night near Dearborn and Jackson. 2 people heard shots and said they felt pain. They were transferred to a hospital in good condition. And a 19-year-old is also in critical condition this morning. He was walking near Michigan and Lake when he was shot multiple times. An investigation is ongoing. So far, police say no arrests. We are working to learn more about any additional shootings during the protests. In addition to Chicago, more than 24 cities across the country have put curfews in place. Here is a map of some of them. Big cities like LA, Minneapolis, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Denver are waking up under curfew this morning. And it was pure chaos in Minneapolis, the city where these demonstrations began. Tear gas filled the streets as people protested the death of George Floyd. Many remained defiant, ignoring a curfew that went into effect at 8 p.m. yesterday. Police showed up in force to disperse crowds. Minnesota's governor and lieutenant governor responded to the tense situation. And remarkable video coming out of Brooklyn overnight. This is alarming. You can see two NYPD vehicles driving into a crowd of people. Senior law enforcement sources tell our sister station in New York the protesters were throwing bricks, rocks, and a flaming garbage bag at police cars. And they say officers were simply trying to get to safety when the crowd surrounded their vehicle. You can see in the video protesters placed a metal barrier in front of the car. But some people were knocked to the ground as police drove through the crowds. In Philadelphia, at least 13 police officers were injured. That includes an officer who was hit by a car while trying to stop looters. You can see a crowd of officers surrounding an ambulance there. The officer was on a bike and was hit by a car as looters were trying to escape. The officer, we are told, has a broken arm. No arrests have been made. And this was the scene in Los Angeles. The governor there declared a state of emergency when protests got out of control. That right there is a graffiti-covered police car that just burned in the street. An hour after LA's curfew went into effect, people could be seen looting from various stores. Governor Gavin Newsom called in the National Guard, and about 1,000 troops arrived in LA just about around midnight. In Oakland, a federal security guard was killed and another injured after shots rang out overnight. Officials are still trying to determine whether this was related to the protests happening nearby at the same time. Authorities say the guard stood watch over the protests when someone drove by and opened fire. So far, there have been no arrests. And President Trump is reacting to the violent protests happening nationwide. The president vowed that further violence will not be allowed.
The death of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis was a grave tragedy. It should never have happened. It has filled Americans all over the country with horror, anger, and grief. I stand before you as a friend and ally to every American seeking justice and peace. And I stand before you in firm opposition to anyone exploiting this tragedy to loot, rob, attack, and menace. Healing, not hatred, justice, not chaos, are the mission at hand.
The president addressed the chaos while speaking to an audience gathered at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida yesterday. Up next, we are going to continue to follow these protests and the aftermath all morning long. And just ahead, we're going to show you some of the damage and hear what Mayor Lightfoot is saying about the violence. And if you are heading out this morning, just beware that a lot of roads are closed or blocked off in the downtown Chicago area. This is a live look from one of our iPass cameras. Looks beautiful out there. Sun is shining brightly. No traffic troubles right there. But remember, you can get traffic updates anytime by going to the NBC Chicago app. A citywide curfew will go into effect again tonight at 9 p.m. as more protests are expected. This was the scene yesterday. It was peaceful for several hours, but took a turn just before dusk, creating a night of unrest. Protesters started in the afternoon marching to Trump Tower. Police then had to create a barrier to hold them back. But then protesters shut down Lakeshore Drive and parts remain closed at this hour. We saw several clashes between police and protesters, and we know that there were several arrests. That led to scenes like this one, a police squad car set on fire in the Loop. Within minutes, it was completely engulfed in flames. And Chicago's Magnificent Mile is unrecognizable this morning. You see a van there abandoned on the street. It is covered in graffiti. Windows are smashed in everywhere, down several city blocks, from police squad cars to storefront windows. Dozens of businesses have been vandalized. A visibly angry Mayor Lightfoot condemned protesters last night following the evening of chaos and violence.
I've been engaged for the last 6+ hours watching a tragedy unfold in our city.
While Lightfoot says she respects peaceful protests, the mayor says there is no reason for looting or bringing weapons to a protest. The mayor was adamant that if people break the law, they will be arrested. Still ahead, we are following the latest on the violence that erupted overnight. And just ahead, we're going to show you some of the damage done to businesses downtown. But first, here is Alicia with what you need to know if you're heading out the door this morning.
And Katie, this morning we have temperatures in the upper 40s and low 50s. We will see highs today in the low 60s along the lakefront, low 70s farther inland. So a cooler than average afternoon, but still sunny and pleasant out there all day long. The 10-day forecast is coming up for you right after this break.
If you were downtown, this was the scene all throughout the area. Chaotic scenes on the Mag Mile. Cameras caught that man with a shovel breaking the door of Tiffany's. High-end shops were a hot target during these protests. Looters were seen left and right breaking into stores along Michigan Avenue. And similar scenes in the Loop. Looters ransacked this Journeys on State Street. You can see the windows there completely smashed. Time now is 6:20, and we want to switch gears and get a quick check of the weather. Good morning again, Alicia.
And good morning to you, Katie. Good morning, everybody. We have plenty of sunshine outside right now. Sunny skies to continue for the rest of the morning and a whole way through the afternoon. So it will be a pleasant Sunday. Temperatures right now pretty cool to start. We're at 48 degrees in DeKalb, 52 in Joliet. Good morning, Waukegan. Your temperatures at 48, 50 in Kankakee, and 50 degrees right now in Valparaiso. Average high temperature for this time of year is 75. So we are going to see those highs a little bit below average for this time of year, but still pleasantly cool this morning, and a nice mild day today is expected. Low so far this morning, 50 degrees. Here's our satellite and radar. High pressure is in control of the forecast for today, so no weather worries out there as we go through the afternoon. In fact, maybe just seeing a few clouds from time to time as we go through the later portion of the day, but notice most of those clouds right now, and even rain showers staying well to the west and southwest of our area. So dry conditions, sunshine continues all day long. 67 degrees by noon. By 4 o'clock, temperatures along the lakefront will be the coolest, perhaps even upper 50s to low 60s. And then inland, we will see those highs in the low 70s. My forecast high today at O'Hare, right around 70 degrees. And then it will be a cool evening. The sun will set tonight at about 8:20, and temperatures will be in the 50s at that time. Let's jump ahead to Monday. Monday morning, notice some more clouds will move in. Dry during the morning, early afternoon hours, but a weak disturbance will pass through by Monday, and that could bring us a few spotty showers, maybe an isolated thunder shower, but notice how coverage is very limited as we go through the day Monday. So not everybody will see the rain and or storm if there is one, but we do have that chance going throughout the day Monday. Otherwise, partly to mostly cloudy skies will continue for Monday afternoon and into Monday evening, with some clearing as we head Monday night into Tuesday. Monday, we are still pretty comfortable with our humidity. Take a look at the humidity comfort level. Yellow and blue, that means pleasant and mild conditions for Monday morning, Monday afternoon. Temperatures will return to where they should be for this time of year in the mid-70s, but watch the humidity comfort level as we approach Tuesday. You will notice a little bit more of that orange color, maybe even a little bit of that red color. Muggy, oppressive conditions will be back on Tuesday as temperatures will approach near 90 degrees as we head into Tuesday afternoon. So if you are a lover of the heat and humidity, Tuesday will be your day. Sunny and pleasant, dry conditions for today. Tonight, mostly clear skies, cool at night with temperatures in the mid-40s to low 50s area wide. We're going to see the increase in the temperature mid-70s for the day on Monday. Remember, partly to mostly cloudy skies tomorrow. Not everybody will see that chance for rain, but we'll keep it going. Dry but hot and humid on Tuesday, near 90 degrees. We're still pretty warm on Wednesday with a high of 86, but a chance for storms. Right now, I'll keep Thursday dry with a high of 80 as the cold front passes, but then a chance for showers as we head into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Not a complete washout for the upcoming weekend, but we'll keep that chance going as temperatures, Katie, stay in the low to mid-80s.
Alicia, thank you. Still ahead, our coverage of the clashes in Chicago continues. And after the break, we will show you what one well-known Chicago actor says happened to him last night while he attended one of the protests. We continue to monitor the aftermath of violent protests in Chicago. Residential buildings went on lockdown, stores were looted, restaurant windows smashed, and there is graffiti everywhere this morning. Remember, these protests began in memory of George Floyd, who died in police custody. One woman who was encouraging people to stay peaceful shares why she joined.
in.
They rode past our homes and we were just sitting there, and it brought me to tears. My daughter was like, "Can we go?" And I said, we have to do something. We've been standing and doing nothing, and people are dying, and I just can't take it anymore. I can't take it to sit back and do absolutely nothing. The only thing we can do is peacefully protest, and that's that we have to exercise our right. Because if there's no peace for one, there's no peace for any of us.
Superintendent Brown vows to arrest people who are damaging property and businesses. Actor John Cusack says he was attacked by Chicago police last night.
Get out of here! Let's go! Let's go!
It might be hard to make out, but Cusack posted this video on Twitter. He says he was on his bike during the protests and filming, and that's when he says police surrounded him and began hitting him and his bike to get him to stop filming. It's not clear whether he was injured. Ahead in our next half hour, we will show you the damage done by some looters and the effort this morning to pick up the pieces. And NBC5's Sandra Torres is following the violence from overnight.
Katie, we've been driving all around the city just looking out for damage after last night's protests. What you're looking at is a Jimmy John's here on the corner of Illinois and LaSalle, completely destroyed, and the owner just told us they stole cash registers. We've got a live report showing you these images coming up.
Right now at 6:30, a violent night in Chicago. Protesters clash with police, smashing into businesses and setting fires. The devastating scenes and how some are trying to pick up the pieces this morning. The news at 6:30 starts right now. Welcome back and thanks for being here. I'm Katie Kim. We begin with the very latest on a violent night in Chicago. Protests over the death of George Floyd turned chaotic overnight. Police clashed with the crowds. Mayor Lightfoot says some of the protesters were armed and some police officers were hurt. The mayor imposed a curfew which expired just about a half hour ago. Protesters set several fires and smashed into dozens of businesses downtown, stealing whatever they could inside. We have team coverage coming up in just moments of this violence and destruction, as well as the cleanup efforts happening this morning. But first, let's get a quick check of the weather with meteorologist Alicia Roman. Good morning, Alicia.
And good morning to you, Katie. Good morning, everybody. We do have sunny skies outside right now. Calm conditions, no weather worries as we go through the day today. So sunny, dry, and pleasant as we head through the morning and afternoon. Temperature right now, we're at 51 degrees. In the upper 40s, low 50s area wide, from 48 degrees in DeKalb, 49 in Aurora, 53 at Midway. Good morning to you, Waukegan. Your temperature is at 48, and we're at 50 degrees right now in Valparaiso. Taking a look at the day ahead, temperature by 10 o'clock will be in the upper 50s by noon, 65 degrees, and highs today will range from the low 60s to the low 70s. Cooler temperatures expected along the lakefront, but notice we have sunny skies that will continue for the rest of the day today. We'll take a look at the 10-day forecast. More heat, humidity, and storms on the way, Katie. I'll have that in just a few moments.
Alicia, thank you. And returning back to our top story, violent protests raged on across Chicago. Many stores, including on the Mag Mile, were broken into and looted. Some set on fire. Our team coverage continues with NBC5's Sandra Torres. Hi there, Sandra.
Hi, Katie. As you know, we've moved every 30 minutes since the show began at 5 a.m. And every time we move, every corner we go to, there is damage just like this. Right now, we are on Illinois and LaSalle in the River North neighborhood. You may be familiar with this Jimmy John's if you work in this area. I just spoke with the owner, and he tells me that basically 2 cashier registers were taken. A lot of property was damaged inside, and you're looking out here now. There's actually a little convenience store directly next to the Jimmy John's. The ATM was stolen as well, and there is just debris scattered across the sidewalk. One of the things that the owner was telling me here of the Jimmy John's is that he feels so bad for this particular owner of the convenience store. He has been closed since the pandemic began, and now he has to deal with this. All of these business owners are really impacted by what happened here last night. Take a look at some of the images of what we captured in the middle of the chaos. And these were the scenes earlier in the night. Our reporter Lexi Suter was out in the midst of it yesterday, tweeted this video as thousands of people took over the loop, throwing projectiles at officers, including Molotov cocktails, according to Chicago police, basically destroying anything that got in their way. Take a listen as Mayor Lori Lightfoot described her reaction to what she saw last night.
You don't come to a peaceful protest with a bowling ball or a hammer or a shovel or a baseball bat. You don't come to a peaceful protest with bottles of urine to throw at police officers. When you or anyone behaves in this way, we all lose.
And you're looking live again at images of a nail salon, another business that was destroyed last night, and it has been ransacked. There is just shattered glass everywhere. We are feeling this morning for all of these business owners. One more thing I wanted to mention from the Jimmy John's restaurant owner here on the corner of Illinois and LaSalle. He was telling me that he was so happy to finally have his employees back at work this week. And on Wednesday, they were going to start the outdoor seating area. Unfortunately, those employees will not be going back to work because that Jimmy John's is now destroyed. Unclear when they will reopen. Back to you, Katie.
Sandra, that is just so heartbreaking because these are local business owners, local employees in our communities, and it's just so sad to see this morning. Sandra, thank you for that report.
I can't even believe what I'm seeing, Katie. It's hard.
It's really exasperating. It truly is. Wow. And we have more sad news to report. This is an iconic business in the Loop that has burned down. The Central Camera Company has been on Wabash since 1899. The Central Camera wrote on its Facebook page that it will rebuild. The store plans to set up a GoFundMe page to support efforts to rebuild. And as Sandra just showed us, there is so much to clean up this morning. NBC5's Chris Hush is live in the Loop, where, Chris, I understand that volunteers have now shown up to help with some of that cleanup.
Right, this is exactly better news to report this morning, just showing the heart of this community. Before we get to that, though, let's show you the damage. So if you're just tuning in with us right now, we are along State Street. This is the Macy's here on State Street, which saw so much damage last night. Every other storefront along State Street has been affected some way, whether that be glass that was shattered or tagged with graffiti. I mean, there was just so much going on here along with the looting. Let's go to Brenna O'Brien now. She is with Women's March Illinois. You are also organizing this community effort. So tell me a little bit about how you've been able to organize these people overnight.
Well, there were thousands of peaceful protesters here yesterday, and many of us were here. I was down here myself. And so we knew that after the night fell that there were certain bad actors and instigators that were breaking this, probably not even with the protest. We are concerned about white supremacists starting fires, starting this. So anyway, we just on Twitter and Facebook, we let people know, hey, the curfew ends at 6 a.m. Let's get down there and show that we can clean up after we've been on the streets. But the most important thing is we need justice for George Floyd. And, this is just things. These are just consumers' products. They could be replaced. He cannot be replaced. So if we have to march again, we will march again, but we will show that we can also clean up as a community.
How many people are you expecting to come out here? I know you didn't have that much time to get the word out, but tell me how the word has been spreading and how many people you are expecting this morning.
Well, starting at midnight, we started spreading the word on social media, and I know that at least 20 people are on their way here right now, but it's going to continue to grow throughout the day. So please bring a broom, bring gloves, and we are social distancing, so make sure that you're wearing a mask, and we'll be doing that. We'll be cleaning up.
One last question for you. Obviously, there was a lot of damage up and down State Street. Are you just staying in one location here at the Macy's, or will you be going throughout the city to clean up?
We started at Macy's just as a central point, but we want to make sure that we are supporting the local businesses that got hit, because we know that these corporations, they're fine. They're fine, and, this doesn't really mean much to them. But the local businesses, we need to help them regrow and restart.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you're doing here to help clean up. And, you know, she kind of touched on a point here. We've been saying it this morning. A lot of these businesses here, they've been closed already throughout this pandemic. They were hoping to open up this weekend, and now they are facing this damage. And unfortunately, there is talk that this could continue this week. So for now, we have a lot of people from the community expected to show up. As she just said, 20 people at least confirmed here, but they are inviting plenty more people here to State Street and throughout the city to help clean this mess up. It's absolutely, in my own words, I'll say it's absolutely disgusting to see this here in this city. And if you live downtown, you heard the glass shattering last night. You heard the bangs, the fireworks that were going off. It was absolute chaos. But to see these people come out now and clean up after all of that is really heartwarming as a Chicagoan. I can say that much. For now, I'm Chris Hush. We are live along State Street. We're going to send it back to you.
Just shows sort of the resiliency of this city and that folks will come together for good. Chris, thank you so much. And it was pure chaos in Minneapolis, the city where these demonstrations began. Tear gas filled the streets as people protested the death of George Floyd. Many remained defiant, ignoring a curfew that went into effect at 8 p.m. yesterday. Police showed up in force to disperse crowds. Minnesota's governor and lieutenant governor responded to the tense situation.
Let's be very clear. The situation in Minneapolis is no longer in any way about the murder of George Floyd.
There are white supremacists. There are anarchists. There are people who are burning down the institutions that are core to our identity.
The governor ordered 1,000 more National Guard troops to Minneapolis, saying those who are causing the destruction are not local citizens there to fight for justice, but to disrupt society and instill fear. One person died and 2 others were hurt when shots were fired during demonstrations in Indianapolis. The shooting happened a few blocks from the center of protests near Monument Circle. Police say there is no evidence the shooting was an attack on protesters, but there were several hundred demonstrators there at the time. In Detroit, the police department declared protests downtown to be an unlawful assembly. Police say protesters threw projectiles and M80 grenades at officers. Then officers used tear gas to break up the crowds. Police said around 11 last night only 5 arrests had been made. No injuries were reported. In New York, protesters set police cruisers on fire. More than a dozen vehicles were burned in Manhattan and in Brooklyn. A number of downtown businesses were broken into and looted as well. Police say they made at least 100 arrests. President Trump spent much of the day yesterday away from the violence. He was at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida when he addressed the turmoil happening all across the country. He vowed that the violence that erupted in Minneapolis and in other cities will not be allowed.
I understand the pain that people are feeling. We support the right of peaceful protesters, and we hear their pleas. But what we are now seeing on the streets of our cities has nothing to do with justice or with peace. The memory of George Floyd is being dishonored by rioters, looters, and anarchists. The violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings.
Trump also said that George Floyd's death is a grave tragedy and should have never happened. And spreading unrest leaves the nation on edge. This is a look at the New York Times front page this morning. This photo shows a powerful image of a burning building in Minneapolis with a silhouette of a person raising their arm in protest. The New York Times captures the tone of our nation as demonstrators continue to protest the death of George Floyd. Still ahead, our coverage of the violence in Chicago continues. After the break, we will show you some of the damage left behind. We'll be right back. Cleanup continues this morning after a chaotic night in Chicago. Demonstrations started peacefully in the memory of George Floyd, but then descended into destruction.
Get out of there! Get out!
This is a look at the protests at State and Lake yesterday. NBC5 content producer Val Badillo captured these images as protesters set fire to a police car. They could also be seen looting a Starbucks and 7-Eleven. Police later made a perimeter to try to condense the violence. And our Phil Rogers captured this video of some protesters getting arrested last night. We know several people were arrested, but police say they don't have accurate numbers at this time. And some protesters destroyed everything in sight. You can see here one person took a large object to destroy a bus stop. Glass shattered everywhere. Nothing apparently was off limits last night. And take a look here at more devastating images of our city. This is a look at Oak Street, where businesses were smashed and destroyed. Windows were broken and buildings were tagged. And we want to move to politics now. Meet the Press moderator Chuck Todd joins us from Washington with more. And Chuck, such a difficult morning because we're waking up to seeing sort of the destruction left behind from some of these protests in cities across America after the killing of George Floyd in police custody in Minneapolis. What are your takeaways from what we've seen from the protesters and state officials and the president himself?
Well, look, I do think we need to look at this week through the prism of basically through this entire calendar year so far. And let's, in particular, start with the pandemic, right? And African Americans have been hit hardest by this pandemic in deaths and hospitalizations. The unemployment picture, which is just devastating, depression-like numbers. Again, African Americans being hit among the hardest on that front. Now throw in, you know, we've had three just hideous examples of police interaction with African Americans or law enforcement like interaction with African Americans for somebody who was jogging, somebody who was just at home, an EMT worker, or the situation with George Floyd. So I do think we have to put it all together and say, you know, should we really be surprised that there's all this pent-up anger and anxiety and frustration that it was going to express itself? So I do think we have to see it through that entire prism, through that entire picture. And it really is a huge challenge for all elected officials, but particularly the president. He's not somebody who instinctively reaches for glue and says, how can I bring these pieces together? He's somebody whose instinct politically is to look at the divide and see if there's an opportunity there to exploit it for political gain. You know, certainly how his Twitter feed can read. And yesterday you saw him, the Twitter feed was pretty aggressive when it came to the divide. In public, though, during, you know, when he was down at the launch, he was trying to sound more conciliatory. I think this is a big challenge for him. We'll see if he can meet it.
And there's just so much pain all over the country. And Chuck, we know that you're going to be speaking to a potential vice presidential pick for Joe Biden on the show today. How do you think this week affected the former vice president's search for his own VP?
Well, look, he's already pledged that his running mate is going to be a woman. And I think the question is, does he really need to be picking a woman of color? And there's certainly, he's got plenty of very qualified women of color on his short list. And I think after all of this week, and you think about how can he put together a coalition that sticks together with him in the fall if he doesn't pick a person of color. The person I'm interviewing this week that you're referencing is Val Deming. She's a congresswoman, hasn't been in Congress very long, but that's not the reason she's on the list. You know why she's on the list? She's the first woman of color who ever was a police chief in the city of Orlando. So here's somebody that might be able to bridge some of these divides at a time when Joe Biden really needs to have somebody who can do that. We'll see how she does.
All right, Chuck, we always appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Meet the Press is coming up at 9 o'clock this morning right here on NBC5. We'll be right back. Time now is 6:51, and we say good morning to Alicia Roman. She's got your forecast.
Good morning, Katie. Good morning, everybody. Sunny skies outside right now. Mostly sunny skies to continue for the rest of the afternoon, and temperatures are in the 40s and low 50s. So it's a cool start to the morning. 49 degrees for you in DeKalb. We're at 53 in Joliet. Good morning, Waukegan. You're at 48. Kankakee, 52. And right now in Valparaiso at 50 degrees. The average high temperature for this time of year is 75 degrees. My forecast high today at O'Hare will be right around 70 degrees. So we are going to still see those numbers a couple degrees below average. Satellite and radar, nothing going on. High pressure in control of our forecast here locally and also area wide, stretching from Green Bay down to St. Louis, where we do have dry conditions. Cloud and rain stay to the west, and we will just see maybe a few high clouds later on this afternoon. So let's take a look at the hour by hour forecast as we head into the afternoon. We're going to see those numbers increasing to the low 60s by 10 o'clock, right around 70 degrees, 1, 2 o'clock this afternoon. But notice full sunshine all day long today. More clouds, though, to move in for Monday, a weak disturbance to pass through Monday afternoon, and that could spark off a few spotty showers. Notice that coverage is not area wide, just limited to a few locations where we could see a few of those spotty showers, maybe even an isolated thunder shower, but for the most part, partly to mostly cloudy skies throughout the day on Monday, with that chance for showers into Monday afternoon. You will still notice low humidity throughout the day on Monday. The humidity comfort level still in that pleasant and mild category as temperatures stay right where they should be for this time of year. So adding a couple degrees for Monday in the mid 70s. But by Tuesday, the oppressive humidity, muggy conditions return. Notice on the humidity comfort level, more of that orange, a little bit of that red, and temperatures on Tuesday back into the upper 80s and low 90s expected by Tuesday afternoon. So if you love the heat and humidity, Tuesday will be the day for you. Today, though, cool temperatures, low humidity, sunny skies, dry conditions all day long. Tonight, mostly cloudy, cool night again with temperatures in the mid 40s to low 50s, and the extended forecast. We're back to average on Monday with temperatures in the mid 70s, near 90 on Tuesday. Heat and humidity back. Showers and storms on Wednesday, then staying in the low to mid 80s as we continue to look on for the next 10 days. We'll track a chance for showers Friday, maybe on Saturday and Sunday as well, but not a complete washout. Katie?
Alicia, thanks so much. Still ahead, we will have a recap of the violence overnight and what is expected today. Stay with us. Now your 5 things to know today. Violent protests raged on across Chicago. Protests started peacefully and then turned to this. Many stores in the Loop and on the Mag Mile were broken into and looted. Some were set on fire. Chicago now has a curfew in place from 9 p.m. until 6 a.m. until further notice. The damage is extensive this morning. Windows and storefronts were smashed. The destruction comes just as stores were preparing to reopen in Chicago after being closed due to the pandemic. Volunteers are gathering outside the Macy's on State Street this morning to help clean up. It's organized by the Women's March. Volunteers are being asked to bring a broom and trash bags and to wear a mask and gloves. The National Guard is being deployed in cities all over the country to ramp down on violent protests, including in Minnesota, where the protests began. Military vehicles have been patrolling the Twin Cities to try and stop the violence. President Trump is reacting to the violent protests. He vowed that further violence will not be allowed and says what we are seeing on the streets has nothing to do with justice or peace. And let's check in with Alicia for one final check of the weather.
And Katie, sunny skies this morning. That will continue for the afternoon. Dry conditions, pleasant temperatures out there, but pleasantly cool, I should say, as temperatures along the lakefront will range from the upper 50s, low 60s, and then inland in the low 70s, but we are dry today. Tomorrow, just a chance for a few spotty showers in the afternoon as temperatures approach the mid to upper 70s, and then heat and humidity will be back in the forecast by Tuesday. Temperatures near 90 degrees, still hot on Wednesday with a chance for storms. As the front passes through, we will see those temperatures back into the low 80s, but still in the 80s as we wrap up the next 10 days. Katie?
Alicia, thank you. And we do thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to take a quick break for the Today Show, and then we hope to see you right back here at 8 this morning. Stay safe, and we hope you have a great day.